The heat on the mining colony of Tartarus IV was enough to blister skin within minutes. But for the slaves working the open pit, the heat was the least of their worries. Here, life was measured in cycles of agony, and death was a mercy that came too slowly. But in the darkest pits, sometimes a spark is struck that burns down an empire. The air tasted of sulfur and despair. The twin suns of the Tartarus system beat down on the quarry, turning the red dust into a suffocating haze. Hundreds of beings, species from a dozen conquered worlds, toiled under the gaze of the Craxian overseers. The cracks were towering, chitinous nightmares. Six-limbed, armored in natural plates of black exoskeleton, and cruel beyond measure. Ronin wiped a mixture of sweat and grime from his forehead with the back of a scarred hand. He paused for only a second, his shovel heavy with ore. "Keep moving, human," a guard hissed, prodding Ronin's shoulder with the butt of a plasma rifle. Ronin didn't look up, he didn't speak. He simply adjusted his grip and tossed the load into the hovering cart. He had been here for 2 years. He had learned the rules. Keep your head down, do your work, survive. That was what humans did best. They adapted, they survived where others perished. A few yards away, a commotion broke the rhythmic scraping of shovels. I cannot, a soft voice gasped. Ronin's eyes flicked to the side. A female Valari had collapsed. Her species was known for their ethereal beauty, pale luminescent skin that seemed to hold starlight, and hair like spun silver. But they were frail, not built for heavy labor. This one was small, even for her kind. Her prisoner rags hung loosely on her emaciated frame, and her violet eyes were wide with terror. She had dropped a crate of refined isotopes, the expensive crystals spilling into the dust. The overseer, a particularly massive Crax named Vrox, stomped over. The ground shook with each of his steps. He looked at the spilled cargo, then at the trembling girl. "Valueless filth," Vrox growled, his voice like grinding stones. "That crate is worth more than your entire bloodline!" The girl tried to push herself up, her arms shaking violently. "I am sorry. Please, water. Water is for workers." Vrox uncoiled the weapon at his hip. It was a neuro-whip. A nasty piece of technology designed to stimulate every pain receptor in the body without causing fatal damage. It was an instrument of pure torture. Pain is for failures. The pit went silent. Slaves lowered their heads, terrified to watch but unable to look away. Vrox raised the whip, the energy coil crackling with a menacing hum. The girl curled into a ball, sobbing quietly. Ronin felt that familiar coldness in his chest. The logic of the camp screamed at him. "Stay down! Not your fight. You intervene, you die." But as the whip began its descent, something primal snapped in Ronin's mind. It wasn't heroics, it was anger. Pure, molten human rage at the unfairness of it all. He moved. To the aliens watching, humans were slow, squishy things, but they forgot that humans were pursuit predators. They had explosive burst speed. Ronin dropped his shovel and lunged. He didn't attack the guard. He didn't have a weapon. Instead, he threw himself over the girl. Crack! The sound was like a thunderclap. The neuro-whip didn't hit the fragile Valari girl. It wrapped around Ronin's back. The pain was blinding. It felt like liquid fire was being injected directly into his spine. It was designed to drop a Krogan war beast. Yet Ronin didn't scream. He grunted, a low guttural sound, his body locking up as the electricity fried his nerves. The camp gasped. A human protecting a Valari? It was unheard of. Vrox stared, confused for a moment. Then, his confusion turned to amusement. A volunteer, how noble, and how stupid. Ronin pushed himself up to his knees, straddling the girl to shield her. He looked up at the overseer, his eyes burning with a defiance that unsettled the giant alien. "She's done," Ronin rasped, his voice rough from dehydration. "Let her be." "You do not give orders here, meat," Vrox sneered. He raised the whip again. "Since you wish to share her burden, you can take her share of the discipline. 10 lashes." The girl beneath him grabbed his tattered shirt. "No," she whispered, her voice melodic even in fear. "Move, human, you will die." "Stay down," Ronin muttered to her. The second lash fell, then the third. By the fifth lash, Ronin's vision was blurring. His back was a ruin of shredded fabric and burnt skin. Blood, red, distinctively human blood, soaked into the dust. But he didn't fall flat. He stayed on his hands and knees, a living shield. He focused on a single rock in the dirt. He focused on his breathing. You know, pain is information, pain is temporary. The Valari girl watched him through her tears. She had seen strong warriors crumble after one strike. She had seen proud kings beg for mercy. But this human, this dirty silent laborer, he took the fire and refused to burn. 9, Vrox counted, breathing heavily from the exertion. 10. The final blow landed. Ronin collapsed forward, his arms giving out, but he managed to roll to his side, ensuring he didn't crush the girl. Vrox laughed, a clicking, chittering sound. Take them to the isolation cells. Let them rot. If they are alive in the morning, put them back to work. 2 guards dragged Ronin away. He was barely conscious, but as his eyes rolled back, he saw the Valari girl reaching for him, her violet eyes burning with an emotion he couldn't place. The isolation cell was cold, a stark contrast to the surface. It smelled of mold and old blood. Ronin lay on the stone floor, every breath a battle against the agony in his back. Why? The voice came from the darkness across the small cell. Ronin groaned and shifted, trying to find a position that didn't scream at him. Why what? Why did you do that? The Valari girl crawled into the sliver of light provided by the energy bars. Her face was clean now, though her clothes were rags. Up close, her beauty was otherworldly, but her eyes held a steeliness he hadn't seen in the pit. You do not know me. You are human. We are different. Pain hurts the same, doesn't it? Ronin coughed. Doesn't matter what color your skin is. She stared at him, stunned by the simplicity of the answer. She reached out, her long, slender fingers hovering over his shoulder. Your back, it is damaged. My people, we have some minor healing abilities. May I? Ronin hesitated, then nodded. Knock yourself out. She placed her hands gently on his raw skin. A cool sensation, like standing near a glacial stream, flowed from her palms. It didn't fix the wounds. She was too weak for that, but it numbed the fire. Ronin sighed, his muscles relaxing for the first time in hours. I am Alara, she whispered. Ronin! Ronin! She tested the name on her tongue. In the ancient tongue of my people, names have power. Yours sounds like stone, unyielding. Where I come from, it just means a warrior with no master, Ronin muttered. Alara paused. Her hands trembled slightly against his skin. I have a master now. We all do. The cracks! Only if you let them be, Ronin said, his eyes closing. You are brave, Ronin, but foolish. The cracks have an armada. They have the orbital blockade. We have shovels. Ronin opened one eye. I've seen empires fall to less than shovels, Alara. It just takes the right leverage. She fell silent, continuing to soothe his pain. After a long while, she spoke again, her voice barely audible. I'm not just a worker, Ronin. My name is Alara Valshara. I am the 3rd daughter of the High Matriarch, the princess of the Valari Coalition. Ronin didn't laugh. He didn't scoff. He just looked at her. Well, princess, you're a long way from a throne. My ship was captured, my royal guard, slaughtered. They separated me from the others so I could not rally them. They do not know who I am. If Vrox knew he held a high daughter, he would not whip me. He would execute me publicly to break my people's spirit. Ronin sat up slowly, wincing. The revelation shifted things. He wasn't just protecting a fellow slave. He was protecting a symbol. Does anyone know you're here? My people will come, she said, a flicker of hope lighting her eyes. The Valari armada is searching, but without a signal, without knowing I am alive. They cannot risk a planetary assault. The blockade is too strong. Ronin looked at the energy bars of their cell. He looked at his scarred hands. You need a signal, he stated. I need a miracle, she corrected. Ronin cracked his neck. A dark, dangerous grin spread across his face. The kind of grin that usually preceded explosions. Princess, miracles are out of stock, but I can offer you a very loud, very violent distraction. The next 3 days were a blur of calculated endurance. Ronin healed with a speed that baffled Alara. Humans, she learned, were biological anomalies. Their adrenaline, their clotting factors, their density, it was all evolved for a high-gravity death world. They were put back in the pit, but something had changed. The other slaves watched Ronin. When he walked, they made space. He had taken the 10 lashes and lived. He had looked Vrox in the eye. Hope is a dangerous contagion, and Ronin was patient zero. Tonight, Ronin whispered to Alara as they hauled slag near the processing venting shafts. The shift change. The guards get lazy around the perimeter towers. What are you going to do? Alara asked, fear and excitement warring in her chest. I'm going to overload the main reactor, Ronin said casually, as if discussing the weather. When the power grid blows, the slave collars go offline for about 2 minutes before the backup kicks in. That's your window. Get to the comms tower. Send your signal. And you? I'll be busy keeping Vrox and his friends entertained. Lara grabbed his arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong. You cannot fight a legion alone, Ronin. That is suicide. Ronin looked down at her. For the first time, he softened. He reached out and brushed a smudge of dirt from her cheek. I'm not fighting for me, Lara. I've got nothing left to lose. But you can save everyone here. Get your fleet. Rain hell on these bugs. The moment was shattered by the siren. Shift change. Ronin moved. He didn't run away. He ran toward the reactor coolant pipes. He grabbed a heavy Durasteel pry bar from a tool rack. A guard shouted, raising his weapon, but Ronin threw the bar like a javelin. It skewered the guard, pinning him to the machinery. Chaos erupted. Ronin grabbed the guard's plasma rifle. It was too big for human hands, but he jammed his finger into the trigger guard. He spun and fired into the coolant regulator. Boom! Steam hissed violently, and alarm screamed. The lights in the quarry flickered and died. The hum of the slave collars, the constant pressure in everyone's skull, vanished. Now! Ronin roared, his voice carrying over the panic. Fight or die on your knees! The slaves hesitated for only a second. Then the rage of years took over. Rocks were thrown. Tools became weapons. The Crack's guards, used to submission, were overwhelmed by the sheer ferocity of the uprising. In the confusion, Ronin found Alara. He shoved a stolen datapad into her hands. Go, the tower is north. Run, Alara! I will not leave you. She cried, you have to. Be a queen, Alara. Save your people. Ronin pushed her toward the shadows. Go. She looked at him one last time, searing his image into her memory. The blood, the grit, the unyielding strength. Then she turned and ran. Ronin turned back to the chaos. He checked the charge on the plasma rifle. All right, you ugly bastards, he muttered. Come and get it. Alara reached the comms tower. Her hands flew across the alien console. She bypassed the encryption with the codes Ronin had stolen from the guard. She aligned the dish. This is High Daughter Alara Valshara. I am on Tartarus IV. The prisoner camp. We are rising. Coordinates enclosed. Requesting immediate assistance. Fire on my mark, the message went out. A beacon in the dark. But down in the pit, the battle was turning. The slaves were brave, but the Cracks had mechs. Overseer Vrox had arrived in his personal war suit. A 20-foot-tall walker bristling with cannons. He was wading through the rebellion, crushing bodies underfoot. Where is the human? Vrox bellowed, his amplified voice shaking the canyon walls. Bring me the human! Ronin stood atop a pile of rubble near the reactor entrance. He was out of ammo. His shirt was gone, revealing the fresh, angry welts on his back, alongside old scars from wars long past. He held a jagged piece of metal like a sword. Over here, ugly! Ronin shouted. Vrox turned his mech toward Ronin. You caused this infestation. I'm just taking out the trash, Ronin spat. The mech charged. Ronin didn't run. He waited. He waited until the mechanical fist was inches away. Then he dove. He rolled under the legs of the walker. He jammed the jagged metal into the hydraulic knee joint. Fluid sprayed. The mech stumbled. Ronin scrambled up the back of the machine, climbing like a demon. Vrox tried to shake him off, but Ronin held on with a grip that defied logic. He reached the cockpit hatch. He didn't have a code, so he used brute force and a stolen grenade. He pulled the pin and jammed it into the ventilation slat. Eat this! Ronin leaped off the mech seconds before the cockpit exploded. The massive machine toppled, crashing into the dust with a sound like the end of the world. Vrox pulled himself out of the burning wreckage, his chitinous armor cracked, bleeding green ichor. He roared in fury, grabbing Ronin by the throat before the human could recover from the fall. Vrox lifted Ronin into the air. I will tear you apart slowly. Ronin couldn't breathe. His vision was tunneling. He kicked, but it was useless against the alien's strength. So this is it, Ronin thought. Not a bad way to go. Then the sky tore open. It wasn't thunder. It was the sonic boom of atmospheric entry. Dozens of sleek silver dropships screamed out of the clouds. The Valari Armada had arrived. The orbital bombardment was precise. Lasers vaporized the guard towers. Drop pods slammed into the quarry, unleashing Valari Praetorians. Elite warriors in gleaming power armor. Vrox looked up, distracted. That was his mistake. Ronin drew a hidden knife from his boot, a small, rusty thing he'd sharpened for months. He drove it into Vrox's exposed wrist. The alien shrieked and dropped him. Ronin hit the ground coughing, but scrambled back to his feet. Vrox raised a claw to strike, but a lance of blue energy pierced his chest. The overseer fell. dead before he hit the ground. Alara stood there, holding a Praetorian energy lance she had taken from a newly landed soldier. She was panting, terrified, but furious. Ronin looked at her and grinned through bloody teeth. "Nice shot, princess." The battle ended quickly after that. The crack surrendered or died. The dust began to settle. A massive command ship landed in the center of the pit. The ramp lowered, and a general in gold-trimmed armor descended, flanked by hundreds of soldiers. The slaves fell silent. They backed away. General Kale, the commander of the Valari legions, marched up to Alara. He looked at her tattered rags, then bowed low. "Hi, daughter. We thought you lost. The coalition rejoices." Alara nodded regally, but she didn't look at the general. She looked at Ronin. Ronin was leaning against a rock, trying to stop the bleeding from his side. He looked like a wreck, bruised, bloody, dirty, a stark contrast to the pristine, angelic Valari warriors surrounding him. "General," Alara said, her voice commanding, "secure the perimeter and get a medic." "For you, Highness?" "No," Alara pointed at Ronin. "For him," the general sneered slightly under his helmet. "The human laborer? Highness, we have priorities. He is insignificant." The air dropped in temperature. Alara walked up to the general. She was small, but she seemed 10 feet tall. "Insignificant?" She turned to the gathered army. "Look at him!" she screamed, her voice breaking with emotion. "You see a human. I see the reason I am alive." She pointed to Ronin's back, where the fresh, horrifying welts from the whip were visible. "He took the lash for me. He broke the reactor for us. He fought a warlord with a piece of scrap metal so I could call you." She walked back to Ronin. She took his bloody hand in hers, not caring about the dirt. "He is not a laborer," Alara declared, her violet eyes glowing with power. "He is my champion, and he is under the protection of House Valshara." Ronin tried to pull his hand away. "Alara, you don't have to—" "Silence, Ronin," she said softly. "You have saved me enough. Let me save you." General Kale looked at Ronin. He saw the dead overseer. He saw the destroyed mech. He saw the defiance in the human's eyes. A warrior recognizing another warrior. The Valari culture valued martial strength and sacrifice above all else. Slowly, the general approached Ronin. He didn't bow to Alara. He knelt on one knee before Ronin. "House Valshara honors its debts," the general said, his voice ringing out. "You bled for the blood of queens. You fought when you could have fled." One by one, the Praetorian guards dropped to one knee, then the soldiers. Hundreds of elite alien warriors, kneeling in the red dust before a lone, battered human. Ronin looked around, bewildered. "I was just doing the job," he muttered. Alara squeezed his hand, "And now you have a new job." 3 weeks later. The Royal Medical Suite on the Valari homeworld was nicer than any place Ronin had ever lived. It smelled of lavender and ozone. Ronin stood on the balcony, looking out over the crystalline spires of the capital city. He wore a ceremonial uniform now, black fabric with silver trim. It fit him, though he felt awkward in it. He still missed his old boots. "You look uncomfortable," Alara's voice came from behind him. She walked onto the balcony. She wore a gown of shimmering light, a crown of woven glass on her head. She looked every bit the queen she was destined to be. "I'm not used to soft fabrics," Ronin admitted, "or people bowing. It's weird, Alara. They look at me like I'm some kind of mythical beast." "To them you are," she smiled. Leaning against the railing beside him. "The Iron Human they call you? My advisors are terrified of you. They say you are dangerous." "I am dangerous," Ronin said flatly. "I know," she turned to face him. "That is why I feel safe." The tension that had been there since the cell, the unspoken pull between them, hung in the air. "The general offered me a commission," Ronin said, looking at the horizon. "Trainer for your elite forces? Said they need to learn human resilience." "Will you take it?" Alara asked, her breath hitching slightly. "Or will you go back to Earth?" Ronin looked at her. He saw the violet eyes that had watched him take the whip. He remembered the cold cell where she had healed him. He remembered the feeling of her hand in his while an army knelt. "Earth holds nothing for me," Ronin said. "Just bad memories." He turned and stepped closer to her. He was a foot taller, scarred and rough, while she was delicate and perfect, a contrast that shouldn't work but did. "Besides," Ronin grinned, the old roguish spark returning to his eyes, "someone has to make sure you don't drop any more crates." Alara laughed, a sound like wind chimes. She reached up and placed a hand on his chest, right over his heart. "Then stay! Stay as my champion. Stay as whatever you wish to be." "Careful, princess!" Ronin covered her hand with his. You keep looking at me like that, and I might start thinking you like me. I do not like you, Ronin, she whispered, rising on her tiptoes. I belong to you, as you belong to me. It was decided the moment the whip fell. Ronin didn't argue. He simply leaned down. Then I guess I'm not going anywhere. As the twin suns set over the alien city, the human soldier and the alien queen stood together. Two worlds collided, forged in pain, bound by honor. And in the barracks below, the Valari soldiers cleaned their weapons and told stories, not of their generals or their fleets, but of the human, the one who didn't break. The Ronin who saved a princess, and in doing so, conquered a kingdom without firing a single shot.